evening, welcome to Central News for Friday, the 6th of September. I'm Hilary Entwistle. September marks the start of Alzheimer's Awareness Month, which carries with it an increasingly important message about dementia progression and care. The international campaign is a relatively new initiative in its second year of operation, but organisers hope that having an Awareness Month will challenge stigma around the disease and offer better education about care required for those who suffer from it. Each year, the number of people who develop dementia increases, and the current figures are expected to have tripled by the year 2050. Jane Kay says she predicts that Awareness Month will become more significant as the years pass and believes the month of September will increase support and funding for an evidently pressing cause.
It's so important to get the awareness out there when you think that nearly 50,000 people in this country have it, and so many people have no understanding of this illness.
Cambridge local Nikita Howarth has returned home an international medal winner from the recent World Championships in Montreal. The 14-year-old was born with upper bilateral limb deficiency and made 4 finals out of her 5 races, swam 2 personal bests and came home with gold and a bronze medal. Nikita began swimming at the age of 7, and her dedication and perseverance through 11 trainings a week have shaped her into the international medal winner. Nikita says that Montreal was the highlight of her swimming career so far and was a valuable time of learning just what she was capable of.
Well, it was really cool. We went to the old city of Montreal, and I found it way better than the new city because it's like different and it kind of looks like London. But yeah, it was fun, and the pool was great and everything. I liked it so much.
Now for our region's weather for the weekend, Hamilton, your Saturday is expecting a few showers turning into rain and westerlies. Your expected high is 17 and an overnight low of 8. Tauranga, your Saturday will cloud over and some rain in the afternoon. Your expected high is 18 and an overnight low of 8. And the reverse for your Sunday, Hamilton, rain then showers with a brisk westerly. Your expected high is 15 and an overnight low of 5. Sunday for you, Tauranga will have some rain and a gustily southwesterly. Your expected high is 17 and an overnight low of 6. Just ahead, amateur radio in Hamilton. Welcome to Central News on TV Central. The Hamilton Amateur Radio Club was formed on the 12th of March, 1923. As technology moves forward, do they still have a place 90 years later?
So what exactly is amateur or ham radio?
It's unusual in a hobby, I think, because it's an international hobby. It's covered actually in an international treaty, amateur radio is, which is quite, I think, relatively unusual. One of the United Nations agencies actually has they call them the International Radio Regulations, and in there it doesn't tell you much. It says a service of self-improvement and experimentation, which very helpful, great words. But what is it? It's very diverse, that's for sure. Obviously there's a group of people that they're interested in building things, experimentation, and that's what they do. But then again, there's quite a large number, I'd say. Their big thing is communication, and their interest in the hobby is just talking to other people, making contact with other people. I guess if you're talking to the guy down the road, that's fairly, well, no, not predictable, but it's another New Zealander, so it's not a big deal. But once you start, say, talking to a Russian ham or a German, any other country, it all gets a bit different. So there is quite a thing, I guess, in the communicating bit of it. It's not just yapping on all day. It's probably the best. But there's others. That's only 2 of them aspects. Some of the hams, they're into it for the competitive part of it. They get involved in making contact with as many hams in as many different countries as possible. One of our local hams here, he's actually on an American honour roll He's got 432, they call them entities because, strictly speaking, they're not countries, they're, at best, big parts of countries in some cases. And some of them are, like islands, say Spratly Islands, which are very small, and they count as an entity. So it's, it's a bit confusing. But yeah, he's up that high, and there's only 300. Sorry, did I say 400? There's 340, I think it is, total possible, and he's on the he's in the top 10%. That's what the honour roll means.
And why do you believe that amateur radio is such an important part of the Hamilton community?
2 or 3 reasons, really. One, I guess, is the obvious one with civil defence, things like that, because our guys are all spread out around the community, and in the event of some real emergency, they can provide communications from their homes to a central point without doing anything very special. They're there, they're ready to go. So they're very useful to civil defence, not for the normal routine civil defence comms, because they've got that all controlled themselves, but for when things come a bit more unravelled and things like cell phones all stop working and all that sort of thing, which does happen right at a certain point in an emergency. And at that point, then our guys start to be quite useful.
How does a person become an amateur radio operator?
Basically, there's several ways, really. One is just self-study. There's on our National Association's webpage, there's a self-pacing self-study guide, and you can go through that and pass, and all done. Some go to tutorials at their local radio club, or in fact organised courses, and in fact some of the clubs in the country run effectively a block course. It runs over a weekend. You go along, you know nothing when you get there, pretty intensive study for 2 days, you sit the exam and hopefully you come away with your licence, and a lot do. So yes, there's several different ways. The exam, by the way, is just a multi-choice paper. It's been put together by our National Association, and the standard of it is controlled by the government, by the radio spectrum management people. So that's what's involved. It's a technical exam that you have to sit though, but not a techo exam, just technical.
So as a club, what sort of events do you run throughout the year?
We have each year, one example is a National Field Day, it's called. It's setting up comms from a place that you've built on the day, aerials you put up on the day, and not using mains power. It's all on some kind of emergency power. But it's a competition, and the game is to make contact with as many stations as you possibly can in the operation. So that's one of the things. Another thing we do is we have a market day each year. We just had it actually in August. And that's for selling. It's a bit of I suppose you'd call it a swap meet, or it's a second-hand equipment people bring along that they want to sell. And it's surprising how often what one person might think of as junk is absolutely essential to one other, and it works very well.
Do you think there will continue to be a place for the club in the future, with the new generation coming through?
Since our club got started, which was really when radio was only just getting going, there's been an incredible increase. There's cell phones, there's all these sort of gadgets, there's Wi-Fi, there's an incredible variety, and I'm sure that's going to continue happening. So yes, the hobby will continue, I'm sure, but it'll be different.
Just ahead, cervical screening awareness. Welcome back. September is Cervical Screening Awareness Month. In New Zealand, an average of 200 women a year are diagnosed with cervical cancer, and an average of 70 women die. Welcome to the show, Chrissy. So what is cervical cancer?
Cervical cancer is caused by the human papillomavirus, and it cannot develop without that virus.
So what does a cervical smear show?
The cervical smear is actually aiming to detect the abnormal cell changes to the cervix before they actually develop into cancer. So we're not screening for cervical cancer, we're screening for the abnormal cell changes that can actually lead to cancer. And the best way to reduce the risk of developing the cervical cancer is to have regular smears every 3 years.
So we don't actually screen for cervical cancer per se. We are screening for this HPV virus.
Not the virus, you're actually looking for the changes on the cervix, the abnormal changes that the virus may cause.
Oh, okay. And I mean, does cervical cancer have any symptoms?
The abnormal changes don't cause any symptoms, but cervical cancer is one of the slowest growing of all the cancers, and so it could actually take 10 years to develop. And so the symptoms that you need to see your doctor about is if there's bleeding or spotting between your menstrual periods or after sexual intercourse, if you're postmenopausal, whether there's bleeding or spotting, unusual vaginal discharge, and persistent pelvic pain or pain during sexual intercourse. Those are the symptoms that may appear when the abnormal cells become cancer. And those are the symptoms, if you have them, you need to see your doctor. But these rarely indicate cancer, but they should be checked.
So potentially it might not have any symptoms?
No, that's right. While it's developing into cancer, there may not be any symptoms at all. So that's why it's recommended that women join the National Screening Program, which screens women from the age of 20 to 69 years of age, because it's the regular screening that's able to detect if the HPV virus has caused any abnormal changes on the cervix.
Does the HPV virus have any symptoms?
Not as such. Those now they can actually test to see if you have the HPV virus. But once you got the HPV virus, there is no treatment for it. There's actually only treatment for the changes on the cervix, the abnormal changes that it causes.
And how many people are estimated to carry the HPV virus then?
They say anything from 75 to 80%, but all people that are sexually active or have had sexual intercourse could possibly have the virus, and that's both male and female.
What is HPV?
HPV is human papillomavirus. It's spread from by skin-to-skin contact during sexual intercourse with a person who has the virus, who's a carrier of the virus. There are actually about 200 types of HPV identified, and of those 200, 40 can actually affect the genital area. And of those 40, at least 15 are classified high risk as they can lead to cervical cancer. But 2 of those 15 types cause around 70% of the cervical cancer. And as I say, it does grow very slowly. It can take up to 10 years to develop.
And I mean, if it is such a slow developing cancer, there's even more important to get these cervical smears more regularly, because you could protect yourself, really, couldn't you?
Yes, it's the cervical screening program in New Zealand is what we call a well women's program. So it's really about the women keeping their regular checks in order to stay well, so that if there's any abnormal cells detected on the cervix, they can be treated pretty readily.
And there is actually a immunisation vaccine for HPV now, isn't there?
There is now a HPV vaccine. It's offered to year 7 and 8 girls in primary school. It's most effective when it's when girls are vaccinated prior to having any sexual intercourse, because the body is able to build up an immunity to if the virus is passed during sexual intercourse.
I mean, many women don't feel comfortable getting a smear and, you know, going through all that kind of thing. What should they know?
I think the main thing to know is that there may be some discomfort, but that you can speak with the nurse smear taker before you actually go ahead with your smear. That for some, if you are quite embarrassed, you know, about having to lie on your back, you can have it done on your side. We suggest that, you know, if the nurse doesn't have something to cover your lower half, that you request it. Some find it easier to have a skirt on rather than trousers. And to relax. Some find that if you deep breathe beforehand, it's a very quick procedure. It doesn't take very long at all, but if a woman is really tense, then you can actually find that it can be very, you know, have a bit of discomfort with it. And the best time to actually have the smear test is midway between your menstrual cycle.
To find out more information about cervical screening, talk to your doctor or research online, as there are many services out there which aim to make you feel as comfortable as possible. Coming up next, the Great Gallagher. If you have just joined us, welcome to Central News. The 2013 Great Gallagher Race is set to kick off this Sunday, and teams from international universities and North Island secondary schools are beginning to arrive in Hamilton. Harriet Wilson went out to find out more about this exciting event.
So Rob, tell us what's been going on here this morning.
Yeah, we've just had the welcome, or the pōwhiri for the university crews who are visiting the Waikato, and it's a very special part of the whole festival, really, the Gallagher Great Race Festival, in that it's the first time for the crews, the Waikato crews, to eyeball the visitors across the divide, so to speak. And it's also a very special thing for the visitors to see a Māori, the culture in action for the first time. Most haven't seen that before, and it's quite unique. You know, the haka, but then having to line up and do the hongi, that's very challenging. You know, it's quite an awkward thing, but they all do it, and they get a chance also to give their cultural song. So Cambridge had to do a little sing-song, and it was all very awkward, but they did it very well. And it's a bit of fun, but it's also a bit of serious, formal welcome to the crews.
And what universities are involved in this year's event?
We have the regulars from Australia, Melbourne and Sydney universities, both men and women, and they've been regular visitors for the 11 years that it's run. This is being the 12th Gallagher Great Race. This year for the men's crew also is Cambridge. Now they're the biannual crew, they always join us. Between years it's Oxford or Washington or Harvard universities in the past. But Cambridge is the one consistent. Every second year they visit here, and they're here again. They are the champions of the rubbers against Waikato so far. They've won 3 of the 5 races they've come here for. So it's 3-2 to Cambridge, and we hope Waikato will square that rubber this year.
Now, there are also some other events that go on as part of the festival, so can you tell us more about those?
Yeah, it is a festival, Gallagher Great Race Festival, really, in terms of it's certainly on the water. There's a lot of other action other than just the great races between the men's crews and the women's crews, 3 boats in each race. There's also a schools cruise, the University of Waikato Schools Regatta, where we bring several of the Māori Cup crews from all around the country competing in the curtain races. Also, for the first time, we have a race for the Sam LeCompte Trophy, which is an international between the under-23 Australian men's and women's against the equivalents here in New Zealand, and that's going to be around midday as well on the Sunday the 8th, which is a first, as I say, and it's very exciting to have them here as well.
Yeah. And where does the course begin and end?
So the start is down on Ann Street, if anyone knows the river, towards the north end of the city, and the race spans about 3.8 kilometres and finishes at the Ferrybank Lounge, which is the Hamilton Rowing Club, on Grantham Street. The place to be really is, if you're going to be down on the riverbanks, is at Grantham Street itself. We have a big screen set up, there's commentary on the day, there's lots of stuff to do on the day at Grantham Street, including a children's playground, fairs and rides and all sorts of things. There's lots of other entertainment, so yeah, come on down, it's going to be a great day.
Why will this year's event be extra special?
Well, as I say, the fact that we've got another international competition with the under-23 national crews from Australia and New Zealand, men and women. I guess something special is that we have international rowers have come back from the World Champs just recently. Zoe Stevenson just got pipped for the gold medal at the World Champs and the silver medal in the double scull, and what a great race and great athlete, and she's in the women's crew along with many other world champions. From the visitors, we have a Cambridge crew, have a silver medalist, Olympic silver medalist, and so I guess it's just the special thing in some ways is this is best of the best. You know, we've got top international elite athletes performing on the Waikato River in an unusual setting because it's a windy river with current conditions, emulating the traditions of the boat race in London on the Thames, and it's a unique regatta in that sense outside of the Thames in England. It's the only event outside England that does this year on year out, and it's getting into that tradition. Actually, it's pretty cool.
Now, this year's event is also raising money for a charity. So can you tell us more about that and what that charity is?
Yeah, it's the Waikato Breast Cancer Trust is the key element we're trying to raise for this year. We've got a big dinner tonight, actually, in raising funds for that, and we've got some great speakers along for that, and so that'll be fun. And we've got 320 people attending, and we hope to do a good job there for them. Also on the day itself, on Sunday the 8th, down on the river at the Grantham Street will be some other fundraising initiatives for the Trust. So it's a great cause, and it's a great thing to be working with them on that.
And what will people need to know if they want to come down and check out the event on the day?
Yeah, well, things kick off pretty early with the corporates racing, very early in fact, if you want to get down there bright and early. But probably around 10 o'clock the main events start kicking in. The head of the Waikato's on around 11 o'clock, and then the big events, the great races, start at 12, and then the main event is on at about just after 1 o'clock, the men's great race itself. So, I mean, that's, if you want to win, you've got to be there just for that one race at least, but certainly the women's around 12 o'clock, I think, is the time to be there, really. Hope to see you down there. It'll be a great event.
That is the news for today and this week. We really want you to be involved, so like us on Facebook. Let us know your views. If you have news including your own video and photos, go to our website and hit upload. Thanks for joining us. I will be back next week with more guests from in and around our regions. I'm Hilary Entwistle. Have a lovely evening and a fantastic weekend.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.